understand what you're talking about. So I'd like to bring Canary on now. Canary, you are a journalist, so you are the front line, but a different sort of front line. What has been your experience and what was your personal crisis?
Thank you, Katia. My experience as a journalist covering the pandemic has been overwhelming. It's been like a roller coaster. I've had to change shifts, being the chief correspondent of the COVID-19 network. While, our newsroom was divided into two groups, I've had to work in both groups or both shifts. Really, there's been a lot of time to work than rest. And we've had to deal with a lot of fake news. We've had to deal with battling not just the pandemic, but also the infodemic. We've had to deal with informing the people, knowing that people have trusted you with information that they are going to depend on to make the right choices for their lives, careers, and jobs, and their families. So you feel like you're in a very privileged position to pass on this information. At the same time, you're in a very disadvantageous position because if anything goes wrong, you're partly to be blamed because you are the custody of this information as you disseminate it. My personal crisis was really, I'm glad we were not laid off at work, but my personal crisis was to stay safe while bring the information to the people. I've never seen such a thing. It was new in my life. So having to deal with disseminating information right from the field and having to stay safe. Everywhere you go, oh, this one is a journalist, don't even get close to us. You interact with a lot of people. We reached a point where we felt like we were sidelined because of our careers, and that alone, knowing that the kind of professions that we do, we sort of felt like we were not like other humans, if I could use that word. But all in all, I think it was a learning experience. Having to deal with lots and lots of information at a very specific time when people needed it. And then we reached a level where people started saying, I think we're tired of this information. And in Uganda, we're entering a season of politics. The transition alone, like 360 degree. So you put out information and then people be like, you know what, we've seen politicians really gather people around because of the campaigns and the politics. So stop telling us about coronavirus. I think we're tired of it. It's a hoax. We are now safe. We want to return to normal. So because the government could not, rather the people could not interface with government face to face, they were interfacing with us, the journalists. So it became the punching bag. So the citizens would say, you are lying. You are being used by the state to bring in this fear so they can do whatever they want and steal money of COVID-19 and etc. So it was such a different experience like we've never experienced before. At times, people really love and need us. Give us this information, we're yearning for it. Then after a few months, we don't want this information, like they speak out. So it was quite an interesting time.
Thank you, Canary. As you spoke, I could draw on some some similarities between what's going on in Uganda, as you speak about it, and Zambia. So just like yourselves, we're actually getting into election year. We're gearing up, so it's quite eventful, and it's also been interesting to see. On one hand, you'd have leaders talking to you about the importance of staying safe, social distancing, and the very next day holding major campaign rallies. And in the same breath, you'd have young people who are on the streets wanting to have peaceful marches to talk about the things that they're unhappy with in the current leadership. And they wouldn't be accorded the same opportunity. In fact, they'll be dismissed and told there's COVID-19. So you could see very quickly that there was a disproportionate response to that. But I was curious to learn more. You said that you've learned a lot during your personal crisis. Are you able to share one or two lessons of what you've learned personally?
Well, I have learned that I think you need to read the moods of the people that you're giving this information and know what information to release, how much information to release, and when to release it. I thought as a journalist, as long as you have information, it's accurate, it's fact checked, you just put it out there the way it is. I've had to learn that that's not how things work actually, that you have to learn the moods of the people. For example, people are dying in one hospital, and then you bring about this information is completely, like, people are yearning to know, so who died? Is it a health worker? What more do we know? And then you bring completely different information. I think we're faced with a very, what can I call it? Like bad energy from the public, say, no, we do not want that. I think this is what we want to know. So they get to a point where they determine the sort of information they want to receive. That is one thing that I learned. So you have to read the moods of the people and know when to release information. And also, for example, while planning to launch the politics season for media at NBS TV where I work, and then we thought, I think it would be really overly insensitive for us to launch the political command center, and yet people are going through a crisis. People have been sent home, they've been laid off at work. For us, we want to launch the politics so as to push the agenda. We said, let's suspend this until further notice. We later launched when the crisis had sort of calmed down. That's one thing I've learned. The other thing I've learned has been about how the human mind works. So in the first months of, let's say, March, April, and May, the need for information on how to stay safe was really high. And people relied on media to get this information, at least according to statistics by Ipsos. They relied on media to get this information than government sources. And then as they got used to the pandemic, and maybe got used on how to stay safe, how to wear masks, how to stay safe out there, and the need for this information went down. And because we were not studying the trends as yet, we were so caught up in so much that was happening at the moment, as the politics was also coming in. So we did not study the trends until a later point when we thought, oh, I think the need for this particular information has gone down. We need to start to give, let's say, 20% to our news on coronavirus, and maybe 80% to what they now need to hear, which is like the politics and how, whether the election is on or not, and stuff like that. So it's interesting how the human mind works and how it will later dictate how other institutions should run, which is something that we had not paid attention to.